Okay. Here we go, everybody. Evan says, who's the next Democratic leader and are they progressive? I don't really know who is going to be the next Democratic leader. And I'm kind of like, we'll see what the primary does. We'll see what happens there. So, but I would just say, like, let's focus on 2026, guys. Let's focus on 2026. All right, over on Twitch, Trump terrified Israel. Terrified. It's very cute. Inverted mystic. He wrote it like a tariff. I'm the Rocketeer says I don't know how they can vote for him either. It's right in his name, Netanyahu. Oh wow, it's the Rocketeer. That was cheesy as hell, man. Are you guys still here? Because I just switched the way that I was streaming. I have questions. I was just trying to change up my setup for the other channels that I'm on. JT says Crockett. Yeah, I love Jasmine Crockett. I think she's great. B-Swag says, this is boring. See ya. No one will miss you. Christy says, I think it will sound stupid, but what is recession? Recession is when the economy shrinks, I think, for something like 3 months straight or something like that. Yeah, it's a very technical thing. It basically just means, like, the economy is going in the shitter. Buttery Panda says, this is why I blame Hillary. If only she would have let Bernie run, we would have been in a different timeline. Buttery Panda, I don't agree with that even one tick. Hillary did not stop Bernie from being able to run. Bernie ran very successful, campaigns for presidency in both 2016 and 2020. And yes, the DNC did put their finger on the scale for the more centrist candidates, Biden and Clinton in both of those races, but Hillary and Joe both did so well in those primaries that I honestly don't think it really made that big of a fucking difference. I'm pretty sure without the DNC putting their finger on the scale, Hillary still wins that primary in 2016. Biden still wins that primary in 2020. Desiree Crow says, I'm personally not a fan of Hillary. I mean, she's not my favorite person, but I also think that I think some of the criticisms of Hillary are a little overstated. This just goes back to my general thesis of Democrats are judged by too harsh of a standard. Republicans are not judged by a harsh enough standard. People think that the Democratic Party is worse than it actually is. People think the Republican Party is better than it actually is. Democrats never get any credit. Republicans never get any blame, etc., etc. Mike Duncan says, do you ever get tired of being a puppet for the Democrats? I'm not a puppet for the Democrats, Mike Duncan. Let's see here. Buttery Panda says, same with Kamala. Kamala's fine. I don't really understand why people are yelling at Democrats when there's literally a fucking coup happening in the country. Like, are y'all here just to distract people from the fucking main point of what is going on right now? How Trump is firing the heads of all the various branches of the military and replacing them with fucking loyalists? That he's fucking deporting people who are legal citizens with no criminal record and sending them to a fucking El Salvadorian prison camp, a fucking concentration camp run by a brutal dictator. Like, do you guys really need to be relitigating 2016 and 2020 right now? Y'all are being sus as hell. Y'all are being sus as hell about this. Let's see here. Do you jork it? No, I dork it. Buttery Panda says, we know what Trump is doing, but we need opposition for which Democrats are not doing anything. Democrats are doing plenty, Buttery Panda, and I gotta be honest, you were on my sus as hell list. Because it's just like everybody's so upset. They're like, oh my God, Trump and Musk are destroying our country. And the Democrats aren't doing anything about it except for Bernie Sanders and AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Tim Walz and Brian Schatz and Chris Murphy and Al Green and J.B. Pritzker and Michelle Wu and Maxwell Frost and Cory Booker and Melanie Stansberg. It's like the list goes on and on. It's like, what are we even talking about here? Dan Blackroyd, I remember a report in 2016 that showed Clinton lies on average less than her male counterparts. Isn't that interesting, Dan Blackroyd? Doesn't seem like that is what the zeitgeist believes about Hillary Clinton. It's almost like our information environments are weaponized against Democratic candidates. Isn't that interesting? It's also billionaires that own all these platforms, so maybe there's like a connection there. Like maybe for some reason billionaires don't want Democrats to win elections. Like, I don't know. That could just be. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm just spitballing here, Patrick, good to see you. Custom Bear says, everyone in Trump's circle got richer by billions. Trey Owens, who did you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Let's see here. Fox042 says, remember when Obama talked about reducing the government? I don't remember that, Fox, and I don't really know why you're bringing that up. Mark LG Painting says, Cory Booker signed legislation to hurt American workers Obama wouldn't have supported. I'm not familiar with which legislation you're talking about, Mark, but I can guarantee you that what Trump is doing is worse. Jade says, I'm worried Gretchen Whitmore is dropping the ball a little bit. I have not heard anything about what Gretchen Whitmore is up to these days. White Cheddar Mac, good to see you again. Says, remember when Obama wore a tan suit? Yeah, let's really get into all the Democratic fucking, what do you call it? All the issues that we had with fucking every Democrat, There's a fucking hostile government takeover going on. Citizens are being fucking disappeared by this government. Agencies are being illegally dismantled. Veterans are being mass fired. And y'all want to argue about what Cory Booker maybe did during the Obama administration? Like, you can fucking miss me with all this shit. Let's see here. Razor, that is accurate. Let's see here. Buttery Panda says, sorry, I am just saying we are not making enough noise about all the injustice that is happening. I don't know who we are, because I'm on here fucking 5 days a week talking about this shit and trying to activate people to do the fucking work, What we can't do, Buttery Panda, is sit around and wait for the Democratic Party to save us. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because they do not have the resources to save us, and they don't have the political power to save us. Number one, political power. People did not vote for enough Democrats in the 2024 election, so now they don't have the White House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the House. The Republican Party has been fucking hacking the judiciary for decades now, so we can't even trust the judicial system to get us out of this shit. It's all fucking Republican hacks in there, especially the Supreme Court. And as far as like the resources that the Democratic Party has, let's look at who is funding the Republican Party. It is all the richest people in the world, like all the fucking 200 billionaires, the people that have hundreds of billions of dollars, and fucking Vladimir Putin, who is also one of the richest people to have ever existed, and just happens to be the brutal dictator leader of an adversarial nation. It doesn't matter if we gave all of our money to the Democratic Party, they still would not have half as many resources as the Republican Party has. The Republican Party's billionaire buddies are in control of all the social media channels, and they use their money, power, and influence to spread misinformation and propaganda on those channels, so people don't even know what actually is going on in the fucking world. So what do? We're not going to sit around and wait for the Democratic Party to save us, right? Buttery Panda? Because we all recognize that shit's going on here. So what do? We have to leverage the power that we have as individual citizens. That is the only way that we get out of this. So what do? We gotta convince people to vote for Democrats in 2026. Give them the House, give them the Senate, give them a filibuster proof majority in the Senate, give them fucking 2/3 majority in the Senate, then we can fucking impeach Trump and get him out of fucking office. Before that, we need to be putting pressure on our elected representatives, especially if they're Republicans, to not be doing the shitty things that they're currently doing. And we got to be talking to our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, our loved ones, to make sure that they are not believing any of the bullshit propaganda that the billionaires are spreading, either about the party or the economy or tariffs or fucking whatever. Make sure that everybody that you know is living in reality and not in fucking right-wing media spheres. And lastly, go join groups that are already doing this great work. Indivisible, Run for Something, and Vote Save America. That's the work. I'm doing the work. So when you say we aren't doing enough, I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Beth Pine says, unfortunately, what I fear is how much damage he'll be doing between now that might be irreversible. So nothing's irreversible, Beth Pine. If a person did it, a person can undo it and vice versa. Now, will there be a very long period of rebuilding? 100%. And we need to nail that into people's noodles. Because the problem isn't just what's going on right now. It's what happens if Democrats get back into office. And if they do, the billionaire class is going to start spreading propaganda narratives about how what they're doing is not good enough and it was better when Trump was president, etc. And so the work doesn't stop there. We got to continue making sure that people aren't buying this shit, I remember during the Biden administration, because I'm plugged into politics, I was hearing all the great things that the Biden administration was doing. Inflation Reduction Act, Infrastructure Bill, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, fucking walking the picket line. And then I go and hang out with my friends, and they're all saying these like really vague, like this fucking guy in office. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, he's doing the shit. And he's like, hey, he said he was going to cancel student loans and he didn't. I'm like, he tried, but it was Republicans that stopped him. And then he started fucking zipping and zapping and he just started canceling student debt anyways. You know, he canceled over $170 billion worth of student debt. So, like, literally, what the fuck are you talking about? Another buddy of mine, he's plugged into politics, and he told me he's pissed at the Democrats for not codifying Roe when they had the chance. And I was like, when did they have the chance? Because it's literally never happened. So, yeah, we have to keep on making sure that people aren't buying the slop that billionaires are trying to force feed us through legacy media, through right-wing media, through social media, etc. That is the work. It doesn't stop when we win the election. Faranaz says, will people do shit? I'm Iranian and I know what dictatorship is. America seems to be in denial. I mean, that's what I'm doing here, Faranaz. I'm trying to make sure that people are activated and doing the work. Let's see here. The student loans were a means to hold debtors on plantations. Okay, Mark. I don't know if that's accurate, but seems, you know, I know what shitty rich people like to do, and that tracks. Dan Blackroyd, they never had the chance, and it's inaccurate to say the Democratic Party never cared about Roe. Completely agree with that, Dan Blackroyd. You're the GOAT. Once again, Ray, a corrupt judge took our right to travel, turned it into three of them movement. Not really sure. Turned it into freedom of movement. A corrupt judge took our right to travel and turned it into freedom of movement. I actually don't know what you're referring to there, Ray. Bill Clinton actually made for-profit schools more profitable. Yeah, you know, Bill Clinton was a different kind of Democrat. He was a neo-lib, and that was what Democrats needed to do to win elections in the 90s. I don't know if you guys are history buffs or anything, but for 12 years, Republicans ran the table from 80 to 92. And so Democrats became a little more Republican-ish in order to start winning elections. So there you go, guys. I don't think it's great, but that's where America was back then. You know, if you don't like it, you talk to the fucking millions of people who only voted for Republicans from 80 to 92. Ray says they took our 14th Amendment and we no longer have privileges or immunities. Again, Ray, I'm not really sure what you're getting at, but ask a question, please. Davey says, are you Jewish? I am. Is some anti-Semitic shit about to happen? This is very exciting. Over on YouTube, imagine if the GOP reacted to all of Trump's lies the way they reacted to Bill Clinton's line about getting blow. Yeah, imagine. We could play this game all fucking day, John. Patrick, I'm with AOC on the insider trading. The government probably has both of us on the deportations list because Bay refused to be quiet. I'm running for office of Somerset. Oh, good for you, Patrick. I'm really happy about that. Way to go, man. Get involved in the process. If you're under 40, you should try working with Run for Something. They love working with young candidates. Lucy says, at the end of the day, Republicans take away rights and Democrats ensure rights. Accurate. Overt X Threat says, do you think term limits to match the presidential limit would be good for the country? Yeah, I'm down for term limits. I'm also down for age limits. I don't think that we should have octogenarian presidents. Doesn't seem like the move. Caleb Gooch says, does a large bureaucracy go against democracy? You know, I don't know if I would make that general of a statement. I think a large bureaucracy that is well maintained and well organized could work really well with democracy, but, you know, that's not what we have right now. And we have it because of, you know, there are people in the government who are incompetent. There are people in the government who are malicious. There are billionaires who purposefully do things to muck up the works. You know, I'm listening to podcasts where they're interviewing Ezra Klein and his writing partner about that new book that they just came out with called Abundance. And they're talking about how sometimes, you know, like billionaires would pay people to, you know, use the bureaucracy to stop green building projects that they liked, you know, and it's like, all right, well, we should change that. That doesn't really work well with democracy, but I don't think there's anything inherent in bureaucracy that is bad for democracy. Ray says, you want to talk about politics, but I don't think you've ever read the Constitution. I mean, I read it when I was in high school, Ray. If you don't ask a question, you're going to get out of here. Jew says, what do you think about what they're doing to Gaza? I think that the government of Israel, led by Netanyahu, is extremely right-wing and guilty of doing war crimes, and we should not be sending them any money or weapons. I also do not like what Hamas is doing because they are also guilty of doing war crimes against the people of Israel. Overt X Threat says, do you think a tax credit for voting would help get more pro involved in voting on the federal level? I actually love that idea, Overt X. I love that. That's great. Wow, I love that policy idea because it's not, a mandate. It's not like you have to or you'll get fined or you go to jail. It's the carrot method instead of the stick. I think that's great. Yeah, and it gets people more involved. Even just like, I don't know, like $50 tax credit or something like that. That's dope as hell. I fucking love that idea. Farinaz says, Carmine says, that chapter on abundance makes me want to leave the country. Yeah, Carmine, I fucking feel you. Jack says, give me an explanation on why Dems are against Doge. Do you not see any benefits? Jack, I will give you the long version. So here's the thing. Democrats are against Doge because, number one, what they're doing is illegal, and number two, they're not doing what they say that they are doing. They're not cutting tax fraud, waste, and abuse. What they're doing is illegal. They're not a government agency that was approved by Congress. None of the cuts that they have made are approved by Congress. None of the firings that they have made are approved by Congress. All of that is illegal. And an argument could be made like, oh, but what they're doing is good for the country, so who cares if it's legal or not? There's a whole conversation to have about checks and balances there that we won't get into. But here's the thing. The things they're doing aren't good. They're bad. So what is Elon Musk doing? Number one, he is lying about all of the waste, fraud, and abuse that he is finding. This has been widely reported. A lot of the things that he is saying are not true. A lot of the numbers that he's saying are grossly inflated. He'll say 10 billion when he means 2 million. And he's cutting, things that we need. It's like, yeah, we're saving money, but we're getting less stuff. You can save a lot of money by not paying rent, but then you'll have to be sleeping on the fucking street. It's a worse situation. So what is Elon Musk actually doing? He is gutting agencies that are currently investigating his companies, like USAID, like the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and he is cutting down agencies that help protect the 99% against the billionaire class. He is in the billionaire class. He is an authoritarian. He fucking loves the far right. He just was boosting the neo-Nazi party in Germany, the AfD party. He did a fucking Zig Heil on Inauguration Day twice. So that's his vibe, man. He likes authoritarian dictator shit. He wants a world where the billionaire class rules over all of us the way that serfs were ruled by kings and fucking real pieces of shit during medieval times, And so that's why he's gutting all these agencies. Like, they want us to be at the whim of our billionaire overlords. And when we have things like a government that can stand up to the billionaire class, then that makes it harder for them to do that. Big Mama says, wow, do you really believe what you're spewing? I don't believe it. It's all facts, Big Mama. And that was a question, so I'm not going to block you. Beth Pine says, same with Trump. He is similar. Completely agree. That's why they like each other. Dan Blackboard says, also, he was auditing organizations that were investigating him, which seems not cool. Completely agree with that, Dan Blackroyd. Farnaz says, why is he against immigration if he wants America to have more population? So the immigration thing is interesting because there are things that Trump and Musk and Republicans should like about immigration, but it's really useful as a tool. It's useful as a political wedge issue because you've got people who are suffering from having less. And the billionaire class that is taking everything is telling them that the reason why they have less is because of immigrants. And that really vibes with some people because immigrants are others. They are different than us. And it is easy for us, like you see a billionaire and you're like, well, he's a white fella like me, so he seems cool. But then they'll show you pictures of poor people from Mexico and you're like, oh, those are different than me. Oh boy. Oh, you telling me those different weird looking people are the cause of all my problems? That makes sense to me, I guess. And then there's the wing of the Republican Party that's just like straight up and unapologetically racist. So they're just like, yeah, you're telling me they took a brown person who is a legal citizen of this country with a fucking family who lived in this country and was just a great member of society, and they just fucking sent him with no trial to a fucking concentration camp in El Salvador run by a vicious dictator, and they're like, good, because I'm a fucking racist and I like shit like that, So yeah, it's useful. It appeals to people's us versus them, lizard brains. But yeah, there's if you crunch the numbers and you look at it, you should see Republicans being about immigration because it does so many things that, are beneficial to the quote unquote fiscally conservative, Let's see here. Ari says, thoughts on the SAVE Act passing the House? I gotta be honest, Ari, the SAVE Act is terrible, but I'm not that worried about it because it's not going to pass the Senate, most likely. The issue would be that if Republicans in Congress start shoving things through by getting rid of the filibuster, which they can do, like that is extremely concerning. And the SAVE Act, let's be real about it. The SAVE Act is a piece of shit. Like, it is a voter suppression bill. But again, like, unless they get rid of the filibuster, that bill is dead in the Senate. So yeah, but I wouldn't stop doing the work of trying to stop the SAVE Act. I just think that it passing the House is like, yeah, the House is a bunch of fucking, yahoos, right-wing yahoos over there, Mark LG Painting says, my homie's family was held for bribes in the old El Salvador. Well, Mark, then, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Wendy says, it did pass, yes, but only in the House. It needs to pass the Senate as well. And it won't unless they either get rid of the filibuster or get, I think, like 8 Democrats to vote for it or to allow voting to happen on it. And I do not believe the Democrats are going to do that. But if you're worried about that, fucking call your reps. Call your fucking senators, my man. Like, we have the power to change this shit. We are seeing currently, since Trump was inaugurated, the effect of public pressure on even this administration. And maybe it's not enough, and maybe it's not what we want, but it is something, and it is proof that what we are doing is working. So I recommend everybody take that lesson and fucking tattoo it in your noodles and be like, yeah, this stuff works. So let's do more of it. And let's get more people to do more of it, All right, let's see if we got anything over on Twitch. Let's see here. Robert Castro, good to see you again. IRS is beginning reductions next week. My wife just found out she's on the hit list after they fired her, brought her back, and now will fire her again. Talk about making sure new talent stays away. Yeah, Robert Castro, that fucking sucks, man. It really pisses me off that they did that to your family. But also, like, how is that efficient, Doge, to fire someone and then hire them again and then refire them? Like, does not seem to be a very good use of the government's time. It's the Rocketeer said everything, Trump did everything right and they indicted him. Source Trump. Accurate, inverted mystic. It's the Rocketeer says Gretchen Whitmer was at the White House recently getting some stuff for the Great Lakes from Trump, and people are accusing her of kissing the ring when she's more just getting her bag for her state and running. There's a certain amount of working with the administration that I think is acceptable, Like, let's say you are Governor Gavin Newsom and it's the middle of the COVID pandemic and you're trying to get some help for your citizens during COVID. And Trump tells you, like, all you got to do to get all the funding that you need is just go on television and tell everybody what a great job I'm doing with COVID. And so think about that calculation that you have to make. Like, you have to lie to all of America and everybody in your state that Trump is a great person who's doing a great job. But if you do that, you will save thousands of lives. That's a difficult call. And that's part of the thing that authoritarian governments do, is they make you make those calculations. Like, are you willing to sacrifice your citizens just so that you don't help us hold up the facade of Trump being great at this, And a lot of governors made that calculation, A lot of heads of state made that calculation. There are a lot of foreign leaders that came here and kissed the ring just because they didn't want to have the fucking fight. And they were like, we'll live with this for 3 years and then we'll just fucking get through it, But yeah, I have a fair amount of flexibility for Democratic governors who might be doing things that look like they are playing ball so that they can protect their fucking constituents, You gotta have to look at this as a case-by-case basis. And I don't know. It's difficult. It's really difficult. That's part of what it means when you're living under a fascist threat, is that you have to make these calls between two really bad options sometimes. Alrighty, Beth Pine says, I thought about not paying my taxes this year, but it would affect my husband too. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about sacrifice, Like, are you the kind of person that is willing to risk going to jail for this? And I completely understand a person not doing that. If somebody's like, that is just not a risk I'm willing to take, I will fight in all the other ways that I'm like, sweet, great. But if you're the kind of person that can make that sacrifice, sweet, great as well, you know? There are a bunch of very powerful people who are not making any sacrifices right now to fight authoritarianism, and we should all be fucking furious about that. Fucking billion-dollar, you know, news organizations and fucking massive law firms that are not fucking linking arms and saying, we're not gonna fucking put up with this shit. Colleges that have like billion-dollar endowments are not standing up to this shit. Like, what the fuck, man? Let's see here. Jerome Newry says, can they find them? They fired everyone. Yeah, some of the people that they fired, they can't even find anymore. It doesn't seem very efficient to me. Jade says, at least Whitmer isn't getting almost kidnapped this Trump term. Well, fucking knock on wood, Jade. Dan Blackwood said, I'm not kissing Trump's wing. I would maybe politely shake his hand between a paper towel. Do you ever see Mallrats? That's the only kind of handshake I would ever give Trump. Anybody get that reference? Flamingo 1973 says, I signed up for e-payment to IRS and they took out significantly less. I've tried to notify them. Yeah, see, when you defund the IRS, they become less good at their job. You know, they're not able to go after rich tax cheats anymore. Every dollar that we put into the IRS goes back into the American government by a factor of like 5 to 1. And it's all because they're able to go after rich tax cheats. The rich have our money, guys. They're holding it. They're holding it in fucking offshore accounts. They're fucking swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck. They're sitting on it like fucking Smaug the Dragon. And for fucking what? So that people can have harder lives? So they can have more control over us? So that we can't unionize and we can't fucking go to college and have better lives, you know? It's fucking infuriating, man. Not Sure says, would you like a chocolate-covered pretzel? Blue Earth Bags. Not Sure gets the reference. Let's see here. All right. Patrick gets the reference. Everyone's getting the reference. This is great. Dan Blackwood, yeah, Columbia really shocked me too. Blue Earthbag says, can we impeach our Republican senators and House representatives? I don't believe that what we would do as citizens is impeachment. I believe we would do what's called a recall election. And if I'm being honest, the legislation involved with removing somebody from office may even be different from state to state. Like there was a famous recall election here in California for the governor. One time it worked, one time it failed. So I would just say, like, if you're unhappy with your senator, or your House representative, like, start looking into that shit. See what your state's laws are about that. Anima, good to see you again. Gym Enthusiast says, when will Armenia join Azerbaijan? I don't know anything about that. Let's see here. Just a Cubs fan says, it's the tax code that the rich take advantage of. Yeah, maybe we should vote in some politicians who would be willing to change the tax code to actually make the rich pay their fair share and then remove some of the tax burden on the rest of us. Maybe it would be good if we voted in some politicians that would ensure that we get higher pay and better benefits at our jobs. Maybe we should vote for politicians that would not let a corporation just poison all of our drinking water and corrupt our fucking crops with poison and shit like that, and make sure that we don't have fucking tons of smog in our air so that all our kids have fucking asthma and lung cancer and shit like that. Wait. Alrighty, let's see here. Jerome, what is Trump doing about China? Nothing smart, I can tell you that. Diego Vargas says, when did comedians become a better source of information than the mainstream media? Hold your tongue, Diego Vargas, because the people at the top of the fucking comedy food chain are not a better source of information. Your Joe Rogan's, your Andrew Schultz's, your fucking Theo Von's, they're all fucking kissing the ring. 5 years ago, they were screaming their fucking heads off about George Carlin and Lenny Bruce and the First Amendment, and it's our job as comedians to challenge the status quo. We're the modern day philosophers. And now they're literally in a fucking fascist adjacent country, and they're saying, what are they fucking doing? What are they fucking doing? A big fucking zero, that's right. Bill Burr is doing the work. I would love it if he was a little more aggressively progressive, but, working fucking class Boston old white guy, he is already doing fucking level 1,000, where fucking Andrew Schultz and Theo Von and Joe Rogan should fucking be right now. Anthony Jeselnik is another one who's fucking doing the work, man. Again, he's a fucking comedian, you know, and he is owning being a comedian. So I don't expect to see him on the picket lines, but he's at least saying the right fucking thing when he's being asked. And I get very fucking heated about this shit because I'm a comic and I've been watching this shit happen for over 2 decades. I've been watching comics get their fucking asses kissed for being this thing that everybody says that we are, these philosophers, and we're so interesting and cool, and then all of a sudden thousands more people want to be comics and the industry gets fucking saturated, and now there's hundreds of comics that I'm friends with who fucking can't get work because they don't have big enough TikToks and shit like that, and these are great comics. And then these fucking guys who are supposed to be holding the mantle of what it means to be a comic. Like, you made it, guys. You're at the top of the fucking mountain. You did it. What are you doing with your power? What are you doing? Are you sacrificing anything? Are you taking any real chances? Or is the chance that you are going to take is saying, nah, I'm going to be anti-trans. Like, that's my whole fucking thing. That's the stand that I'm going to take here, man. Fucking miss me with that shit. Unfucking believable, dude. They should have their fucking comic cards ripped away from them. Fucking Benedict Arnolds. Oy, 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 oy. Sorry. Sorry, guys. That's just one of my fucking buttons, man, where I'm just like, these fucking motherfuckers, dude. All right. Gabrielle says, Joe Rogan is not funny at all. He's not a comic, in my opinion. I mean, you know, he's got, what do you call it? He paid his dues, you know? And, like, if you ever saw him back in the day at the club, I'm sure he fucking crushed it, you know? And he went after Carlos Mencia the way that he was supposed to. But he's different now, you know? Money does that shit to people. Fame does that shit to people. Influence does that shit to people. You know, this shit is powerful, and it can take good people and turn them shitty. Kristen, they aren't good comics. They sold out. Yeah, they sold out, man. This is what they're fucking talking about. Selling out. Creed says, jealous at all? Nah, not really. I would much rather have this life and be able to fucking sleep at night. Rebecca Evans says, they keep saying he's playing chess checkers. No, he's playing Monopoly and you don't own any hotels. I mean, he's playing Monopoly, but he doesn't really know the rules. He's the bank and he's taking all the money. Just a Cubs fan says, oops, was wrong. According to IRS, top 10% pay 76 of federal income races. Is that a fair share? So I would ask you to clean up your question, just a Cubs fan, because I'm not 100% sure what you are asking for. Dan Blackguard, yes, I also love that there's a photo of Bill Burr's wife flipping off Trump behind his back. Exactly. Muzz King, Trevor Noah. You know, I'm not as familiar with Trevor Noah's stand-up. I only saw him as the temporary host of The Daily Show, but he seems like he's doing good work, you know? Google Buddy Boy says, what's your opinion on the other countries wanting to have talks about the tariffs? I mean, yeah, you know, like, it's better to have a deal than to have this stupid fucking trade war. Now, I don't know if any of this reporting is real. I don't know if all these nations are actually making concessions or coming to the negotiating table or anything like that, because you can't trust anything that's coming out of the Trump administration. I've seen no evidence. I will literally believe it when I see it. Alrighty. Let's see here. All right. Questions have calmed down a little bit. Cliff Cash, Patrick. I don't know who Cliff is. I'll definitely check that guy out. All right. Overt X Threat says, what's your stance on Tosh? Everybody just asking me which comics I hate and which comics I love. Tosh, I've seen clips of his podcast where he's doing good work. But I can't tell you, like, generally if he's a good person or a bad person. I've heard him say some really funny things. I saw him do some really funny things on his TV show. But yeah, I couldn't give you a bird's eye view on Daniel Tosh. Death for You says, are you pro-Trump? No, I am not. All right. Okay. Welcome everybody to the live stream. If you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I don't care who you voted for or if you didn't vote at all. I don't care if you're further to the left than me or further to the right than me. I am just here to answer your questions about politics. I don't do roasts. I don't do debating. I don't ridicule people for trying to learn things. That is what I am about. Christopher Titus going the Bill Burr route was such a breath of relief. Oh yeah, Christopher Titus has been on that train for a while, you know. A buddy of mine works regularly with Christopher Titus, and he seems like a good guy. All right. Angelique, can America really do without China? I don't think so. Honestly, China's got all the fucking leverage here. They did the first time that Trump tried to do a fucking trade war with them. They're kicking our ass, and it is 100% Trump's fault. Carmine says, when you guys decide to leave the country, can you come pick me up? Yeah, I'll see if me and my wife have room in the fucking, the car with the false bottom that we can all hide in. Overt X Threat says, do you think we should only allow single issue bills? That's really interesting, Overt X Threat. You got the fucking really cool, new policy ideas on lock. Because, yeah, sometimes these bills can be very overbearing, and they can be muddled with a bunch of rioters, and they can be given poison pills and shit like that. So yeah, it's interesting, but I would be worried about what the mechanism would be for deciding what is and what isn't a single issue. Like what is what's over the line. And there could be issues with the the person who said that minimum wage didn't count as finance issue, so it couldn't be included in reconciliation when the Democrats had the government in 2020. The parliamentarian, the House parliamentarian or the Senate parliamentarian or whatever. Yeah, maybe they would be in charge of deciding what's a single issue or not. Vitamin E says, 'cause you love avocado toast. I do love avocado toast. I don't know what your point is. I am a recovering conservative. Welcome to the party, pal. Overt X Threat, you are welcome here. Beginner Garden says, do you think China will actually undermine, violate patents from the U.S.? Potentially, like they've done stuff like that in the past. It's the Rocketeer says, the problem with eliminating writers on bills is that a lot of your less important ones that would never get their own review would just disappear. Interesting. It's the Rocketeer. Yeah, that's a little over my head. Overt X Threat, and it's the Rocketeer. So yeah, I am open to arguments both for and against. Let's see here. Old Crick, I have not heard of any of those things. Let's see here. I'm a Canadian-born dual citizen. I'm staying to fight because I hate shoveling snow. I'm with you, Dan Blackroyd. Dr. Fanboy says, is communism left or right? I had somebody argue with my opinion. Dr. Fanboy, I think that we need to start addressing the real issue with things like that, with things like communism, which is just fucking semantics. Like, what does that word fucking mean? Because depending on who you talk to, it means wildly different things. It's the same reason why I don't fall into that whole, are you a Zionist or are you an anti-Zionist trap? Because depending on who you talk to, those words mean completely different fucking things. So when somebody says, is communist like left or right? It's like, well, it depends on what you're talking about. Like, do you mean the communism that they had in Russia? Because that was exceptionally right-wing. If you're talking about socialism, the socialism they have in Venezuela is right-wing. There's an idealized version of these systems that are left-wing, but we've never seen it. It's never existed, in human history, in recorded human history that we've been aware of, So yeah, I am just like, here's what communism means, here's what socialism means, here's what capitalism means. And all of these systems can work together. You can have a government that incentivizes companies to be employee owned. You can have privatized healthcare and universal basic income and free public college. And you can also have an Apple store, that seems like a pretty good system to me. Let's see here. Overt X Threat says all government systems are about balance. We have too much pendulum swinging. Completely agree with that. Vitamin E says, I'd love to see him try. Love to see him try do what? Mickey C says, do you really think that on April 20th he's going to declare martial law? So I didn't know about this, Mickey C, but I did see a creator kind of do the explainer about what people mean by that, which is that he had this declaration that he was going to do this thing in 90 days about the border, and he sent a bunch of his people down to the border to try to enforce the idea that he has to, invoke the Insurrection Act because of what's going on at the border. And I found that argument very persuasive, but I don't think that he's going to say, I hereby declare martial law. I think it's going to be like everything that the Trump administration does, and it's going to be incremental, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or should I say 2 steps back, 1 step forward. Boiling the frog in water, Raptor testing the cages, insert the metaphor that you like best for a child seeing what they can get away with. So yeah, he's going to try to invoke the Insurrection Act on April 20th, and we don't know what that's going to mean. We don't know if he's going to try to, disperse the military to blue cities and put them under siege or anything like that. If that's the sort of thing that you're worried about, call your reps. It's the same. What we do about it is the same answer every single fucking time. We put political pressure on our elected representatives. We start political action groups with our friends. We talk to our friends, our neighbors, our families, our coworkers to make sure that they are not stuck in any sort of like propaganda narratives. And the propaganda narratives range from fucking Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, right-wing shit to just both parties are the same shit or voting doesn't do anything shit. You got to correct all those narratives as well. And we got to make sure that we vote for Democrats in 2026. We got to get other people to vote for Democrats in 2026. We got to recruit people to do the work of getting more people to vote for Democrats in 2026. I've got a little pet project called, I haven't come up with a name for it yet, but there's 85 million people who could have voted in the 2024 election and they didn't. Let's find those voters. Let's find them and let's convince them to vote for Democrats. That's the work, guys. Let's see here. Jesse Bennett says they're deploying the National Guard to Mexico to help the police. Have they started doing that already, Jesse, or is that just part of the plan? I haven't heard anything about that. Rebecca Evans says, my entire family are trumpets. It's so hard to exist in this sphere. I am with you, Rebecca Evans. Like, that sucks. It really does. And I have MAGA family members that, unfortunately, I used to have a different philosophy about that. I used to have a fuck them philosophy about that. And so I have long ago burned those bridges. So I can't do the work of trying to convince them anymore. I cannot cash in on the value of me being their family member anymore. But if you can, then there's work that can be done there. And it's hard work, and it takes a long time. And you don't need to take somebody who's MAGA and turn them into a fucking AOC Democratic Socialist. All you gotta do is try to push the needle a little bit. And if you want more information on how to do that work, read a book called The Persuaders. The author's first name is Anand. I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. He also wrote a book called Winners Take All. So that's how you can find that book if you're interested in it. It's also on my Discord under the book recommendations section. You got to do a lot of listening. You got to do a lot of meeting people where they are. But it is possible to convince people. And the idea that you can't convince people is literally Russian propaganda that they have, incepted into our country. That is what he talks about in the introduction to the book, The Persuaders. Over at X Threat says, do you think if Kamala went on Joe Rogan, she would have won? I don't. I'm not really sure what the value there would have been. I mean, it's possible. Like, I think it would have been cool if she had done it. I think she probably would have done a great job. I'm pretty sure that Rogan was in the bag for Trump from the get-go, so... I'm not really sure if she was going to be walking into a trap or not. But I think that the numbers for this election were so overwhelming that I don't know if it would have made that big of a difference, And when I say overwhelming, we're still just talking about like 1.5 points, made the entire difference in this election. All right, stylize, that's spam. Fantastic. Inverted Mystic says, are we limited to political questions, though? If we're not limited, can we ask you how you became a Democrat? Were you always a Democrat? Did you have a cringe era too? I guess that kind of counts as politics. And we're at about an hour, so I tend to loosen up and talk a little bit more about, my personal life and shit like that. Over at X Threat says, do you think not doing it hurt her? I don't know, maybe a little. But here's the thing. We know that what the Harris campaign was doing was working because she was spending most of her time in swing states, and swing states did better on average Democratic voter turnout and Democratic voter votes than in even deep blue states like New York and California. Democrats lost more vote share in blue states than they did in swing states, but we still won because we had more of a, we had more of a cushion. I don't know if anything that she would have done would have made that big of a difference. She just did not have a big enough runway. She just didn't have enough time, in my opinion. Let's see here. Flamingo said she agreed to go on his show. He put out a false narrative about what happened. I haven't read that, Flamingo. I'm interested to know where I can find that information out. Jeremy Newry says, why did Elon get $16 billion from the government as he left? corruption and grifting. So yeah, inverted mystic. I didn't know anything about politics when I was growing up. I really didn't start learning about this stuff until I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I wasn't automatically like aligned with Democrats, but I did start seeing things that made me feel like Democrats were my party. You know, where I was like, all right, well, you know, it seems like these people are a little more racist than these people. It seems like these people are a little bit more in the bag with the billionaire class and the insurance company than these people. And oh, look, Obama, that's pretty cool. He seems pretty cool. And oh, shit, you know, fucking Bernie Sanders. And, you know, I start seeing people doing things that I agree with, and they all are, you know, mostly Democrats. You know, I saw John McCain doing some cool shit, but he, he seemed to be in the minority for his party. So, yeah. The man who, like, says, how do you think we should deal with the terrorist state of Israel? The man who, like, I understand where you're coming from, and I know, I feel the same things that you are feeling, but I don't know if rhetoric like that helps. But I do agree with you that we should not be sending money and weapons to Israel. We should be putting pressure on the extremely far-right Netanyahu Israeli government to stop doing war crimes against the people of Palestine, to try to establish a two-state solution, to stop Israeli citizens from illegally annexing people's houses in Palestine, to not treat Palestine like an open-air prison, etc., etc. Inverted Mystic says, what do you think of communists? Are they too left for you or something? No, I just think that I don't know if we as a country have a good understanding of what communism is. I have never engaged with somebody who's like, I am a 100% communist. Here is what I think we should be doing, etc. Everybody that I know is just like, you know, communist and socialist curious, who's like, well, we could do employee-owned companies, we could do, you know, nationalized healthcare and shit like that. Let's see here. But yeah, I'm not even sure what their message is, Inverted Mystic. All right, let's get back into some of these TikTok comments. Jade says, I grew up Republican. Thank God Obama was my first vote at 18. God bless you, Jade. Thank you for getting out of there. Let's see here. Dr. Bob Fanboy says, do you think most of these people know you wrote a book? Do you think my local bookstore has it? I would be shocked if it exists anywhere, Dr. Fanboy. When Trump first got elected, I got hired to write a funny book making fun of Kellyanne Conway. And it was published. It was called The Kellyanne Conway Technique. It is currently out of print because nobody wanted it. So, yeah. I think you can find copies still on, bookshop.org potentially. But, yeah, I think every copy that is currently in existence is the only copy that will continue to exist. Carmine said, you wrote a book, but it's not in the Discord. Yeah, I'm not going to recommend my own book, guys. It's a very silly book. You know, I talk about the sort of like the bullshit debate tactics that people like Kellyanne Conway use to lie and cheat their way into winning elections. And I try to make it as funny as humanly possible. Let's see here. BB Fan says, what do you think about the 4 Dems who just voted with the House Republicans to require ID with federal elections? I mean, I do not think that any Democrat should be doing that, but there's an asterisk on it. So the 4 Democrats who voted for that, they represent districts in Texas, Maine, Washington, and Hawaii. And potentially, they voted for that bill because they wanted to show their constituents that they have a history of being bipartisan. It was a relatively safe vote to make because it is unlikely that this bill will pass the Senate. Now, that being said, I would be fucking throwing a conniption fit if my fucking reps did that. If my reps did that, I would be on the fucking phone with them every single day being like, what the fuck, man? Explain yourself. I don't think that asterisk should excuse what they did. And if you live in those districts, like, call them up and let them know. You know, I think we should recognize that those Democrats are still valuable to have. That when we have those Democrats in office, that is 1 seat closer to the majority that we have. Now, we should try to replace them. You know, we should try to primary them. But if they still win their primary, they are still better than having a Republican in that seat. And I think that sometimes in our discourse around politics, we forget that point. And we start thinking that a vote for a politician who is anything but perfect is some sort of violation of our purity and our ethics and our morals. And that is just fucking straight up right-wing propaganda to try to depress Democratic voter turnout. There are people out there who tried and very successfully convinced people in the 2024 election to not vote for Democrats because of bullshit reasons or accurate reasons. Like, I think criticizing Democrats and the Biden administration for their policy towards Israel, 100% completely valid. That's one of the reasons why it was such a potent propaganda narrative, is because it was accurate to say that what they were doing was wrong. But it was also accurate to say that Kamala would have been better than Biden on this, and Biden was still better than what Trump is currently doing right now. But the propaganda part of it was ignoring that half. The propaganda part of it was saying, yeah, what Biden is doing is wrong, correct, and what we should do about it is not vote. Or vote for Trump. That'll really send him a message. And it's like, really? Because if Trump gets elected, it's going to be even fucking worse for the people of Palestine. I don't know. He could, openly call for ethnically cleansing all of Palestine the way that he has fucking done. Or, start sending Israel 2,000-pound bombs again, where Biden stopped that. Or, cancel sanctions against the people who are, fucking settling in the West Bank illegally. Shit like that. So yeah, we got to be careful. We got to be careful to put in the big, bold, fucking neon letters. They're still better than the Republican option. Wait, alrighty. Let's see here. All right. Republican. I love you guys over on Twitch. Thank you for being part of the conversation. I want to see if I can get into that. Flamingo says we only hold Democrats accountable. Yeah, Flamingo, completely agree with that. Democrats never get any credit. Republicans never get any blame. I was listening to Ezra Klein talk about his book Abundance, and he was talking about how Democratic states, sometimes they don't get things done because they're in love with process and bureaucracy. And, I think that he makes a lot of really valid points in that book. But the thing that drives me crazy is that so many people on the left don't see that being a result of the way that Democrats get judged by this extremely harsh standard, where Republicans can do fucking wildly illegal shit, make massive mistakes, and the country is instantly ready to forgive them. But then Democrats get smacked no matter what the fuck they do, so they're like, all right, well, I'll be more careful. We'll set up a committee to decide what will be the best course of action going forward, shit like that. All right, looks like I'm having some connection issues. Looks like the connection issues have started again. So sorry to everybody who is watching this on TikTok. Overt X Threat says, who do you think would be a good frontrunner for the next presidential race? Overt X Threat, thank you for being here. You've had some fucking goat-ass comments today, but I always punt on that question because I'm trying to focus on the midterm elections. But yeah, thank you for the comments. Thank you everybody for the comments. I really appreciate all the support. I want Rena, thank you for being a moderator. Thank you for being here always. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me, whether it's just commenting or liking or sharing or telling all your friends how great my live streams are. If you want to contribute financially, you can. You don't have to. I know we're all struggling out there, but if you want to, you can. I got a Patreon you can find on my website, jarrettberenstein.com. I got a store you can buy things from, jarrettberenstein.com/store. And you can send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and shit like that. If you had any questions that I was not able to get to because things were too busy, you can email me through my website, jarrettberenstein.com, and my DMs are open. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting at around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I am going on the road starting next week, starting Tuesday. So my schedule is going to be much more up in the air after that, but I will be live streaming on this Friday and on Monday. And then when I'm on the road, I basically just try to do it whenever I can. So yeah, try to catch me while I am streaming on the road. Check out my tour schedule if you want to come see me do stand-up in person. And just please do the work, everybody. Let's just all do the fucking work. And I'm loving this new pitch that I got for what the work is. I'm really fucking, I used to have to monologize about it for 20 minutes, but now I think I got all the bullet points fucking really set in a good way. If anybody's wondering what the work is, if anybody needs any direction, you can hit me up. My DMs are open. We got to fucking get more people involved in this work. The more of us that do the work, the less work that we all have to do. If everybody does a little work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. Uperlar says, what's up with all this April 20th martial law stuff? There is a suggestion that because Trump said that he is going to invoke the Insurrection Act on April 20th, that means that he's going to declare martial law. I think there's some validity to that concern and that argument. But it's with anything with the Trump administration, you just kind of have to wait and see because they say a million things and they do a million different things. So yeah, if you're worried about it, call your reps, but also, the same thing with everything during the Trump administration. We got to keep our head on a swivel. We got to keep an eye out. All right, let's see what we got going on over here on Twitch. A great conversation about, about everybody's political journeys. I voted McCain over Obama the first time around. I was pretty uninformed in a grew up Republican household. I think it's completely fine, to vote for McCain. I think that of all the Republicans, he's one of the better ones. BRB gonna buy your book and have you sign it at your show. Good luck finding a copy, pal. Inverted Domestic, I grew up Republican. I would have voted for Trump in 2016. I also wanted to vote for Obama, but both those elections I was too young to vote. Democrats aren't held to the same standards because Democratic voters actually care about more things than Republicans. Republicans are single, maybe triple issue voters. Democrats care way too much. That's their problem. I don't think caring too much is the problem. I just think that we are all susceptible to, the same kind of cynicism or, I guess, laziness, just like not wanting to have to think about this or worry about this. When Obama got elected, I was like, sweet, game over. The country is now on a path towards prosperity. And little did I know that a cabal of billionaires was working behind the scene to fucking steal local elections, gerrymander house races, take over media companies like Sinclair, weaponizing social media, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we just gotta keep our fucking foot on the gas, man, and it sucks. I don't want to do this work. I just want to do my own fucking thing. There was a time when I was not a political comedian, and I was just writing regular ass jokes about fucking Superman and, trying to run a car and shit like that. But, you gotta fucking do what you gotta do. Alrighty, let's see here. Alright, everybody. Things have calmed down. I will see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channels. Have an excellent Thursday, everybody. Take care of each other and do the work. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye! Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. Goodbye.